Right, we are back with Scott Morrison 8, Holy City, Australia 8. Now Yahweh wants to make it clear, it is my decree that the Bible, which every soul is trapped within, will be kept under my lock and key as the book put together by men of evil intent, and it will be used for reference by wise men, scientists, mathematicians and astronomers for the purpose of proving myself as God Almighty. Whereas I will commission the putting together of my Holy Bible according to my direction, containing the true line of kings, leading to myself, the Christ, the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. My Holy Bible will contain the true prophets, the Gospels of the Kingdom upon the earth with my presence, and the book of Revelation as it has been fulfilled in my person and recognized by Pope Benedict XVI. And all alterations of the evil will be put right, and the truth will set you free. My Holy Bible will contain my revelation within the measurements of the earth and the creation, and the altar to the Lord of Isaiah 19, 19 and 20. My Holy Bible will contain the truth of the forces behind World War I, World War II, and all evil caused by the Rothschild influence of death that destroys the earth. Now the focus of this PowerPoint of 37 slides is going to be on the true royal family. Now in 2013, it was March of 2013, beginning March the 11th, Pope Benedict XVI and I were communicating via live emails. He had been informed by a German lady, Andrea Anna, she the reincarnate of my grandmother Anna, the mother of the Virgin Mary. Anna herself did conceive immaculately as an old woman. It was Anna that told Benedict I was the most royal man genetically and the Christ. Anna's soul compelled her to research and find the historical lineage from the Judah kings. I will highlight in this presentation my ancestors in red, from the kings of Judah to the Irish line transferred to Scotland and down to Margaret, the patron saint of Scotland. She, the Queen of England and Scotland. Her family fled to Hungary, where she was born, returned to England, and then fled when William the Conqueror arrived in 1066. She fled to Scotland. Margaret travelled to Scotland. There she married Malcolm III, King of Scotland, and she became the mother of 4 kings. Her grandson was King William I, the Lion, and he the father of Henry Golightly. Henry's mother, Isabel d'Avenel from France, was descended from the kings of Jerusalem. So these are my ancestors, says Yah. Robert Avenel, after 1180, the seal of Roberti Avenel is appended to a charter of Robert Avenel and Gervasi, his son, for Melrose Abbey, dated to 1180. As we go through this, I won't read it all. It does become a little complicated. You can stop and just study the descendants, descending down to Yah. But it's all to do with Margaret, Queen of Scotland, and Malcolm III, King of Scotland, and their children. Now, Yah says down the bottom there that these genetic records are all available on the internet. It continues with Robert, and his wife had 3 children. And it says here the Chronicle of Melrose refers to the daughter of Robert Avenel as the mother of King William's daughter Isabel. And Isabel was, on the internet, is called the mistress of William I, the Lion King of Scotland. And William being the son of Henry of Scotland, the Earl of Huntingdon and Northumberland, and his wife, so this is William's mother, Ada de Warenne. Now, King William was born December the 4th, 1143, and died the same date, December the 4th, 1215. He was buried at Arbroath Abbey, where we visited in June, throughout June of 2013. Now, 2 sons, Robert de London died as a child, and the younger brother, Henry Golightly, a survivor. The name created by King William by divine authority, advising Henry to avoid the throne. Hence the name to go lightly, to avoid assassination of the royal lineage. And here listed are the births of Isabel in Edinburgh, Midlothian. So these are the children of William and Isabel de Avenel. Isabel was born in the same year that Henry was. She was born in Edinburgh, Scotland. And then at 1162, at the age of 19, she gives birth to her daughter Isabel. And then 1163, at the age of 20, was the birth of Ada of Scotland, Huntingdon, in Huntingdonshire, England. And we've just shown here the synchronicities with, again, because it's all to do with the antechamber being the width 116.26 pyramid inches, but these dates aligning with the antechamber because the Christ as the King of Kings, and the king's coffer is made to his measure. It's a prophecy that he is born and he has to make his way through the antechamber. He's out of the king's chamber, but has to make his way through the antechamber. And you can only do that on your knees. You can't, you have to crawl the passage and then stand up once you're in the antechamber at 116.26 pyramid inches wide, and then get down again and crawl through to stand up once you reach the great step of the grand gallery. So these are all codes that only the Christ can find and reveal, because it's pertaining to his genetic lineage and the people brought into his lives to become wives and giving birth to his own children, and then later marrying his third wife, and she already having given birth to her child, and the linking genetically all brought together in 1 Chronicles 5:13. These people are keys in the revelation. And so here are the antechamber numbers, 1162 and 1163. So in 1167, Isabel, age 24, is the birth of Robert de London in Scotland. Then 1169, Isabel, aged 26, the birth of Henry de Golightly, Stirlingshire, England. 1170, at the age of 27, the birth of Isabel of Scotland, Edinburgh, Midlothian. And in Scotland in 1234 is the death of Isabel at Castle Stirling. She was aged 91, so she lived a very long time for those days. 91 when she died at Stirling Castle in Scotland. And hence sterling silver. It was Henry who began minting his own coins from the sterling silver found at Stirling, and he minted his silver coins. William the Lion, sometimes styled William I, also known by the nickname Garb, being the rough. lived and died, born 4th of December, died 4th of December, born 1143, died 1215, reigned as King of Scotland from 1165 to 1215. So 50 years. The House of Dunkeld, his father Henry of Scotland and mother Ada. King Henry of Scotland was his father. Now let's focus on Saint Margaret of Scotland. Her lineage is wonderful, and she was wonderful. So she was born sometime in 1045 in Hungary, and she died November the 16th, 1093 in Edinburgh. She was canonized in 1250. Her feast day is November the 16th, and the Scottish feast day is June the 16th. She was the Queen Consort of Malcolm III, Canmore, and patroness of Scotland. Margaret was brought up at the Hungarian court, where her father Edward was in exile. After the Battle of Hastings, Edward's widow and children fled for safety to Scotland. Her brother Edgar the Atheling was the defeated claimant to the English throne, joined her there. In spite of her leanings toward a religious life, Margaret married Malcolm III around 1070. Malcolm III, Canmore, King of Scotland from 1057 or 1058 to 1093. Through her influence over her husband and his court, she promoted, in conformity with the Gregorian reform, the interests of the Church and of the English population conquered by the Scots in the previous century. Now, the Gregorian reforms were a series of reforms initiated by Pope Gregory VII and the circle he formed in the papal curia from 1050 through to 1080, which dealt with the moral integrity and independence of the clergy. The reforms are considered to be named after Pope Gregory VII, though he personally denied it and claimed his reforms, like his regnal name, honoured Pope Gregory I. Now, Margaret died of heartbreak 3 days after her husband and son were slain near Alnwick in Northumberland. The message was delivered to her by another son. So here we have Saint Margaret of Scotland, 1045 to the 16th of November in 1093. Also known as Margaret of Wessex, was an English princess and a Scottish queen. Margaret was sometimes called the Pearl of Scotland. Born in exile in the Kingdom of Hungary, she was the sister of Edgar Atheling. Now, Atheling means of noble or royal family, and it is from German word edel. The shortly reigned and uncrowned, so this is Edgar Atheling, the shortly reigned and uncrowned Anglo-Saxon King of England. Margaret and her family returned to the Kingdom of England in 1057, but fled to the Kingdom of Scotland following the Norman conquest of England in 1066. Now, this is Margaret's mother, Agatha von Brunswick. She was Princess of Hungary, and Atheling, meaning again noble royal family. This was a very interesting site that catalogues the burial of our ancestors in history. With Agatha, it says here that her body was lost or destroyed. However, a little bit about Agatha, Princess of Hungary, born about 1018 in Esztergom, Hungary. Agatha was the daughter of King István, the King of Hungary. from 975 to 1038. And her mother was Saint Gisela of Bavaria from 1002 through to 1042. Agatha was the wife of Edward the Exile, heir to the throne of England, and mother of Edgar Atheling, and Saint Margaret of Scotland and Christina of England. Agatha and Edward were married in Hungary in 1035. Agatha was 17 years of age. Prince Edward was the son of Edmund II, Ironside, King of England from 1089 through to 1016, and Ealdgith Algitha Morrison, Queen Consort of England, 992 to 1016. So Princess Agatha was 26 years old when her first child, Christina, was born. She was 22 when her second daughter, Margaret, was born. And she was 33 years old when her last child was born. He was her only son, Edgar Atheling, the uncrowned King of England. Agatha was a kingswoman of Emperor Henry. She came to England with her husband and children in 1057, but she was widowed shortly after her arrival, following the Norman conquest of England in 1066. She fled with her children to Scotland, finding refuge under her future son-in-law, Malcolm III. So the Norman conquest of England was 1066, but it was in 1067 that she fled to Scotland. Agatha died about 1067, so she can't have been there very long. Her death location or burial information is unknown. Now this is Margaret's father, Edward the Exile Atheling, birth January 1016 and death September 1057, only at the age of 41, and his burial is in St. Paul's Cathedral in the city of London. Now, Edward the Exile Atheling, Prince of England, was born January 1016 in Wessex Kingdom, Anglo-Saxon England. He was the son of Edmund II Ironside, King of England from 989 until 1016, and Ealdgith Algitha Morrison, Queen Consort of England from 992 until 1016. According to the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, King Canute banished him into Hungary, where he grew up to be a good man. Florence of Worcester specifies that the infants Edward and his twin brother were first sent to the King of the Swedes to be killed, but the latter sent them to Solomon, King of Hungary, to spare their lives and have them brought up at his court. According to Adam of Bremen, the two brothers were condemned to exile in Russia. He gained the name of exile from his life spent mostly far from the England of his forefathers. After the Danish conquest of England in 1016, Canute had him and his brother Edmund exiled to the continent. On hearing the news of his being alive, Edward the Confessor recalled him to England and made him his heir. Edward offered the last chance of an undisputed succession within the Saxon royal house. News of Edward's existence came at a time when the old Anglo-Saxon monarchy, restored after a long period of Danish domination, was heading for catastrophe. Edward, who had been in the custody of Henry III, the Holy Roman Emperor, finally came back to England at the end of August 1057, but he died within 2 days of his arrival. The exact cause of Edward's death remains unclear, but he had many powerful enemies, and there is a strong possibility that he was murdered. Prince Edward married Agatha von Brunswick, Princess of Hungary. She born in 1018 and lived until 1058. About his wife, Agatha's origin possible is questionable, but a data from the official website of British monarchy and other sources deemed most credible. Agatha was the daughter of King Stephen I, King of Hungary, and Saint Atheling. So it was Saint Stephen I, King of Hungary, and Saint Gisela of Bavaria. Prince Edward and Princess Agatha were the parents of the following known children: Christina of England, a nun at Romsey, and Saint Margaret of Scotland, Queen of Scots, and Edgar Earling, uncrowned King of England. Edward, the exile Prince of England, died before he could be crowned as King of England in September 1057 in London, England. He was 41 years old and left behind a wife and 3 children. And as said before, the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle records that after the Norman conquest, Agatha left England with her children in the summer of 1067 and found refuge at the court of Malcolm, King of Scotland. Now, Margaret's grandmother, as mentioned, the Blessed Gisela of Bavaria, and her grandfather, Saint Stephen I, King of Hungary. Gisela of Bavaria, born 985 in Bavaria, Germany, and her death the 7th of May, 1065. Her burial at the Cathedral of St. Michael in Veszprém, Hungary. And Margaret's grandfather, King Stephen on the right, he was a Roman Catholic saint, Hungarian monarch, Christian King of Hungary, crowned in the year 1001. He was notable for his piety, learning and wisdom. His crown with the famous crooked cross still survives and is one of Hungary's most important national symbols, canonized in 1083 when his relics were transferred to Buda. His feast day is the 2nd of September. So going back 2 generations, the piety and righteousness of the parents and the grandparents of St. Margaret's, Queen of Scotland and the patron saint of Scotland and Yah's ancestor, is why she was who she was. She followed in the Christian tradition of loving Jesus and being pious. Now, by the end of 1070, Margaret had married King Malcolm III of Scotland, becoming Queen of Scots. She was a very pious Roman Catholic, and among many charitable works, she established a ferry across the Firth of Forth in Scotland for pilgrims travelling to St Andrews in Fife, which gave the towns of South Queensferry and North Queensferry their names. So Margaret was the mother of 3 kings of Scotland, or 4 if Edmund of Scotland, who ruled with his uncle Donald III, is counted, and of a queen consort of England. According to the Vita S. Margaretae Reginae, Life of St. Margaret, Queen of the Scots, a tribute to Turgot of Durham, she died at Edinburgh Castle in Edinburgh, Scotland, in 1093, merely days after receiving the news of her husband's death in battle. She died of heartbreak. It was her husband and her son. In 1250, Pope Innocent IV canonized her, and her remains were reinterred in a shrine in Dunfermline Abbey in Fife, Scotland. And one of our people, Dawn, in Scotland, she has visited, I think it was about 2 years ago, Dunfermline Abbey, and sent us information about Margaret. Her relics were dispersed after the Scottish Reformation and subsequently lost. Mary, Queen of Scots, at one time owned her head, which was subsequently preserved by Jesuits in the Scottish College, Douai, France, from where it was subsequently lost during the French Revolution. The grandson of King William I the Lion, Alexander III, became King of Scotland but died without an heir, and the throne of Scotland was left vacant, and England called for royals to compete for the throne. Known as competitors for the crown of Scotland, one was Patrick Golightly, son of Henry, the natural son of King William the Lion. Others were John Balliol, Lord of Galloway, son of de Vauguille, daughter of Margaret, the eldest daughter of David, Earl of Huntingdon, son of Henry, Earl of Huntingdon, son of King David I. He pleaded primogeniture in legitimate cognatic line. These were all related. They're all cousins, one way or another. Robert de Bruce, the 5th Lord of Annandale, son of Isabella, the 2nd daughter of David, Earl of Huntingdon. This Robert Bruce was regent of Scotland sometime during the minority of King Alexander III and was occasionally recognised as a tanist of the Scottish throne. In the succession dispute, he pleaded tanistry and proximity in degree of kinship to the deceased king, his descent being a generation shorter, tanistry meaning that he is the rightful heir. John Hastings, the 1st Baron Hastings, son of Henry de Hastings, son of Ada, 3rd daughter of David, Earl of Huntingdon. Then you've got Floris the 5th, Count of Holland, son of William II, Count of Holland, son of Floris the 4th, Count of Holland, son of William I, Count of Holland, son of Ada, daughter of Henry, Earl of Huntingdon. He claimed that David, Earl of Huntingdon, had renounced his hereditary rights to the throne of Scotland. We've got John the Black, Comyn, Lord of Badenoch, son of John Comyn, son of Richard Comyn, son of William Comyn, son of Hextilda, daughter of Bethoc, daughter of King Donald III. Nicholas de Saules, son of Ermengarde, daughter of Marjorie, natural daughter of King Alexander II. And then Patrick Golightly, son of Henry Golightly, natural son of King William the Lion. Continuing with William de Ross, 1st Baron de Ross, son of Robert de Ross, son of William de Ross of Hamlake, son of Isabella, natural daughter of King William the Lion. Oh, then William de Vesky, Baron de Vesky, son of William de Vesky, son of Margaret, daughter of King William the Lion. Goes on with Patrick Dunbar, leading to, again, the natural Ada, the natural daughter of King William the Lion. Roger de Mandeville, son of Agatha, daughter of Ulfrica, daughter of William de Say, son of Ulfrica, natural daughter of King William the Lion. Then Robert de Pincenez, son of Henry, son of Alicia, daughter of Marjorie, an alleged natural daughter of Henry, Earl of Huntingdon. And then Eric II, King of Norway, father of Queen Margaret, and son-in-law of King Alexander III. The first appointed wife of King William the Lion. Very little is known of Ermengarde de Beaumont, who became Queen of Scotland in 1186 when she married the 43-year-old King William I of Scotland, later known as the Lion. She was plucked out of obscurity by King Henry II of England as the chosen bride for the Scottish king. Her children were born after King William's mistress, Isabel de Avenel, who was descended from the kings of Judah via Jerusalem. Ermengarde was born in 1170, the exact date being unknown. Her father was Richard I, Viscount de Beaumont le Vicomte, and her mother was Lucy de Aiguille. Her father was the son of Constance or Maud Fitzroy, an illegitimate daughter of King Henry I of England. We know nothing of her early life in France, and it was only when she was mentioned as a wife to the Scottish King William I that she comes to light. William became Earl of Northumberland when his father died in 1152, and he was 9 years old. In 1157, his brother King Malcolm IV of Scotland managed to give away William's earldom in his dealings with King Henry II of England, something that William was never able to forget. William succeeded his brother as king in 1165. When King Henry II of England's sons rebelled against their father in 1173, William joined them. William was captured at the Battle of Alnwick and was taken in chains to Falaise in Normandy. While William was in captivity, King Henry invaded the north of England and took several Scottish castles, including Berwick and Edinburgh. He was forced to negotiate with Henry II. So this is William that was forced to negotiate with Henry II. The resulting Treaty of Falaise required William to swear to King Henry that Scotland would be subordinate to England. During the next 15 years, Scotland was subject to English rule. Henry is the ancestor to my grandmother, Mary Harrison, wife of Francis Golightly. Henry took his duties as overlord very seriously, so seriously he wanted to choose a bride for King William. In 1186, William was 43 and unmarried. His mistress, Isabel de Avenel, had given William 4 children, but was asking to marry Henry's granddaughter, Matilda, daughter of Henry the Lion, Duke of Saxony, all to do with royal manoeuvring. But Henry was not interested in allowing William such a prestigious bride. Instead, he chose the daughter of a French nobleman, Ermengarde de Beaumont. Henry offered to pay for the entire wedding and returned to William 2 castles that he had forfeited during their struggles, one of them being Edinburgh. Henry also gave William land valued at 100 marks and 40 knights' fees. The return of Edinburgh was probably the deciding factor for William, even though he considered the bride beneath him in status, and he was in love with Isabel de Avenel, the mother of 4 children, and Henry Golightly. Ermengarde's parents brought her to England. William and Ermengarde were married in the Royal Chapel at Woodstock near Oxford in England on September the 5th, 1186. Baldwin, Archbishop of Canterbury, presided over the ceremony. The chronicler Walter Bauer described Ermengarde as an extraordinary woman, gifted with a charming and witty eloquence. So William and Ermengarde had 4 children who survived childhood and lived for many years. Margaret of Scotland was born in 1193, then Isabella of Scotland in 1195, Alexander was born in 1198, and Marjorie was born in 1200. The 4th daughter of King William I and Ermengarde Marjorie, married a Marshall, he, Gilbert-Marshall, the 4th Earl of Pembroke from 1194 to the 27th of June 1241. He was the 3rd son of William Marshall, who was the 1st Earl of Pembroke, and William's mother, Isabel de Clare, the 4th Countess of Pembroke, the daughter of Richard de Clare. He was a friend and ally of Richard I, Earl of Cornwall. Gilbert acceded to the title of Earl of Pembroke and Lord Marshal on the 11th of June 1234, on the death of his elder brother Richard, who had died childless. Gilbert-Marshall was married on the 1st of August 1235 in Berwick-upon-Tweed to Marjorie, who lived 1200 to the 17th of November 1244. She, the daughter of King William I of Scotland. Now this leads us to the Harrison history, the family crest and coats of arms. My grandmother, the wife of Francis Golightly, Mary Harrison. The first Harrison in England arrived in 870 AD. He changed his name from Habsburg. Later the spelling was changed to Harrison with one S. The origins of the name Harrison are also suggested to be with the Anglo-Saxon tribes of Britain. The name is suggested to be derived from the personal name Henry. The personal name Henry arrived in England after the Norman conquest of 1066, when William the Conqueror won the Battle of Hastings, killing King Harold, the last Saxon king of England. It is of Germanic origin and arrived with the wave of immigration that followed King William into England from continental Europe. The Harrison name is also descended from Henry I, King of England, son of William the Conqueror, King of England, and Matilda of Flanders, husband of Matilda of Scotland and Adelicia of Louvain. Now, with the introduction of the Earls of Pembroke and the Harrison connection, it brings us back full circle to the Cook expedition that we've touched on so many times before, including last night's upload, and the coming solar eclipse of July the 2nd, and its totality over Easter Island and Tahiti, etc. So it was in March of 1768 that the British Admiralty had decided to purchase the East Coast collier and Whitby-built bark or ship called the Earl of Pembroke for the expedition that was sponsored by the Royal Society of London to observe the transit of Venus in 1769. So the ship was renamed SS Endeavour on April the 5th, 1768. So here we have the synchronicities of Resurrection Day, April the 5th, this time 1768. And Lieutenant Cook, he was not captain, arrived in Tahiti on April the 13th, 1769. It was 666 days after Captain Wallis on the SS Dolphin, who discovered Tahiti, sailed on to Easter Island. Easter Island discovered on April the 5th, Resurrection Day, in 1722. And it was discovered by the Dutch, and because it was Resurrection Day, they named it Easter Island. Again, Lieutenant Cook arrived in Tahiti on April the 13th, 1769, 666 days after Captain Wallis of the SS Dolphin. Now, both ships carried a Harrison longitude clock. Cook wrote in his ship's log that Captain Wallis' longitude was correct. Now, Cook had 50 days to explore before the transition of Venus, which was to occur on June the 3rd, 1769. The Harrison longitude clock was invented by my relative Mary Harrison, my grandmother, was married to Francis Aloysius Golightly, and he was the grandfather, 23,229 days old when I was reborn. Cook again discovered the 11-tiered pyramid, its base 267 by 87 feet, a footprint of 23,229 square feet. The diagonal of the pyramid base, 280 feet, which equals a gestation, a perfect human gestation of 280 days. So again, we're coming full circle. After observing the transit of Venus on June the 3rd, 1769, Cook opened secret orders to sail southward in search of an alternative to Australia, which was called New Holland at the time. He sailed south on July the 13th, 1769. Then 48 days later, he recorded the comet on August the 30th, 1769. He reached 71 degrees 10 minutes south. He wrote that the ship had been washed towards a wall of ice, an iceberg. The crew used barge poles to push clear and save the ship. During the severe cold, 2 Negro men died from exposure. Now, the internet, when looking for anything, is dangerous as it is easily manipulated. Cook's approach to Antarctica after sailing from Tahiti has been changed, but searching for the Messier comet, it mentions Cook's observation and the ship's log, August the 30th, 1769. And once I had revealed the 88888 days connection, the Zionist removed Cook's voyage from Tahiti in search of Antarctica. The Admiralty had become dominated by Freemasonry, their god Lucifer, and they realised, having already measured New Zealand 888 between latitudes and Australia, that the creation was the book to be read through its measuring, so got to change everything. So in the previous slide, we read of Cook upon leaving Tahiti and his secret orders being to find an alternative to Australia. They, by this time, after gathering all the information from the voyages that had already occurred, they knew that the earth was a creation and that they were helping God by measuring it. And so what does the devil do but has to counter whatever God does? So we learned that Cook had already sailed in 1769 down to 71 degrees 10 minutes south when he ran into the wall of ice. And here back on Easter Island, where 5 years later, March the 17th, 1774, Cook is sent back, and so he returns to the island to destroy the Asherah statue rising out of the volcano beside her consort, Yahweh. The statue of Yahweh measuring 71 feet and 10 inches, weighing 280 tons, again the perfect gestation, and 71 feet and 10 inches is 21.6 meters. So they knew that they were in big trouble. The Freemason Admiralty, in cahoots with those above them, had to set out to destroy the wonders that they were finding, realizing that their voyages were proving the creation by and through Jesus, aka Almighty God. And here are the distances in time from the transition of Venus, this is top left, until Wednesday, August the 30th, 1769, which is when the comet was sighted, is 88 days, and there are 88 constellations within the heavens declaring the glory of the Lord. On the top there, between the transition of Venus, 1769, June the 3rd, until the birth of Yahweh's grandfather, Francis Golightly, on June the 5th, 1880, it is 111 years. And so again, these people are brought forth at moments in time to foretell of the rebirth of the Christ. 111 years, Yah reborn January the 11th or the 11th of January, depending where you are. Now, Cook, going back to Easter Island, sent back to destroy the Asherah statue, 17th of March 1774, until grandfather Golightly's birthday, June the 5th, 1880, is a period of 106.2 years, and in the Hebrew Concordance 1062 is birthright. Hello, we're talking about grandfather, grandson, the relationship to the Christ. And 1907
is the marriage of the Lamb in Revelation.
Oh, Revelation 19:7. The 1062 is found in Revelation 19:7, which is the marriage of the Lamb. Then, bottom right, you've got from the sighting of the comet, August the 30th, 1769, adding 88,888 days, is Yah's birthday, the 11th of January 2013, when he was 69 years old. So the point of everything was that Cook arrived back at Easter Island on the 17th of March 1774 to destroy the Asherah statue, to stop the truth of the Lucifer Bible being exposed.
It's also the first solar eclipse in 1923.
Yes, the 17th of March 1923, going to the altar to the Lord, Isaiah 19 verses 19 and 20, that first layer of masonry, lunation 0, December the 18th, 1922. So the first solar eclipse aligning with the first layer of masonry was dated the 17th of March 1923.
Now it's also 149 years, which is the longitude of the island.
So, yeah, I was just saying that Easter Island's longitude is 149 years, and that is the difference in time between the 17th of March 1774 and that first solar eclipse of the 202, the altar to the Lord, March 17th, 1923. So there is no escape for them. Absolutely no escape. God has it covered every which way but loose. So with that, we'll move on to Scott Morrison 9, Holy City, Australia 9.